If you feel like you'll never afford a home in Europe, you're not wrong. In fact, the system was specifically redesigned to make sure of it. In 2008, the global financial system collapsed under the weight of the housing bubble it had created. Millions lost their homes, but for private equity firms, hedge funds, and real estate investors, this crisis was not just a catastrophe, it was an opportunity. Countries like Spain, Ireland, Portugal, and Greece were hit especially hard. Homes lost their value, foreclosures soared, and entire neighborhoods sat empty. These distressed assets were then bought up in bulk by international investors at record low prices. Governments, under pressure to cut spending, stepped back from housing. They sold off public housing, weakened tenant protections, and gave generous tax breaks to attract private capital. In doing so, they made it easy for large financial players to take over. And over the next 15 years, that investor presence exploded. In Ireland, over half of all the homes built since 2017 were bought by institutional investors. And in Berlin, over 60,000 of public housing units were sold to private firms for around 7,500 euros. And even in Vienna, which is known for its public housing, over 42% of new rental homes are investor owned. So clearly, it's not just a few buildings. We're talking trillions in global real estate being managed like stock portfolios. But that makes sense. These investors are legally obligated to maximize profits. This means that they can commit aggressive rent hikes, charge exorbitant fees for basic changes and eco upgrades, and commit something called renovictions, meaning that they introduce small renovations and then skyrocket their rent fees to the point where the tenants cannot afford to live in those units anymore. It's clear that the housing market is no longer designed for humans, it's designed for returns. Even the new development units aren't built for affordability, they're optimized for profit. Tiny apartments, co-living spaces, and built-to-rent units that push out entire families. And this is why homeownership in the EU feels so unreachable, because housing has been financialized. It is no longer treated as a human right, but as a commodity for global investors. If governments won't step back in as providers, not just regulators, the crisis will deepen, and stable housing will remain out of reach for millions of Europeans.